open to answer. Okay. Thank you for joining this webinar. My name is Yashika. On behalf of Empower People, I would like to welcome you aboard on this webinar. Our four major panelists are Dr. Jeenam Shah. He's an interventional pulmonologist in Bhatia Hospital in Wockhardt and Saifi Hospitals in Mumbai. Dr. Lalit Janjirala, he's a public health specialist and he has his clinics in Worli. Ms. Pooja Barve, she's a psychologist, she's a practitioner psychologist, and Mr. Waqar Ahmad Surve, he's a senior scientific officer at HLL in Navi Mumbai. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming aboard on this webinar. I would like to welcome you. And before I begin anything, I would like to thank you on behalf of the 135 crore people who are living in India right now. And you are their only hope. And the tireless amount of work you are doing from the front lines, from your clinic, from on calls, from your labs. I would like to thank each and every one of you for doing this tireless job. And thank you so much. Big salute to you. Also, I would like to add that this is it's a live webinar, so you can add your questions in the Facebook comment section, so that we can be answering the questions as soon as we get done with the webinar. There's going to be a question answer session post this entire discussion. My first question will be to Dr. Shah. Thank you for joining, sir. Now that we are standing on the last week of April, now we have had the virus in our country from March first week onwards, and we've been much more vigilant since the second week. What is the trend of patients that you have seen from the first week onwards, now that we are in the 8th week? Is there any pattern of patients that you are seeing? Dr. Shah, can you please switch on your mic?
Yeah. Hi. Thank you for the kind introduction, Yashika. So yes, I think the pattern right across India as well as Bombay, if you consider, or the entire world, the pattern has been the same. We have had infection in the entire population. It is not something that only the elderly are getting infected. Right from children, neonates to elderly people, all are getting infected. But the severity of disease is much higher in the elderly population and population with more comorbidities like heart diseases, lung diseases, and all those kind of diseases. So it has been the same what has been noticed everywhere across the world. In India, I have been seeing patients is almost 1.5 months now, COVID positive patients. So in the trend wise, initially, because everyone was advised to get admitted, we used to see a lot of asymptomatic patients having absolutely no complaints coming to the hospital, were admitted in the ICU just because of the fear of the disease per se. But as and when the time goes across, we are getting more and more experience regarding the disease. So asymptomatic patients or mildly symptomatic patients are also managed at home. So only the moderately symptomatic and severely symptomatic patients have been admitted to the hospital. So yeah, that is the current trend. I would say the current trend is still ranging. The mortality rates is around 4 to 5%, and the infection rate in Bombay is actually increasing. It's approximately 300 to 500 cases per day, and in India, approximately 1.5 to 2,000 patients infected in a day.
Yes, doctor. So, out of all these patients now, since the beginning that we had started March 23rd, we were around 500 patients, and now on April 28th, we have 30,000 patients, out of which 1,000 have already died. Can you just put some light about the reason of death, and what does it have to do with the immunity of the person?
So it is predominantly known that the virus, once you are exposed to the virus, it goes into the nasal airways as well as the lungs. It gets attached to the cells of the lungs. So once it gets attached to the cells, it gets internalized into the cells of the lungs. And once it internalizes, then it starts multiplying rapidly. So once it starts multiplying rapidly, it spreads across the entire lungs. So lungs is the most common organ which is infected in COVID-19 patient. But what happens if the virus loads goes exponentially high? It start infecting the other organs of the body also. There's a certain terminology known as a cytokine storm. So which happens, that is the time that the entire body, all the different organs of the body starts getting infected, and there is a problem that the patient would go down and from there. So that is how the virus comes into the body, and that is how the virus gets multiplied. As against to immunity is goes, we are not really sure why it affects people who are elderly, why it affects people who are having a lot of comorbidities. But it's probably because of the lower immunity in those kind of individuals. We don't know the exact mechanism of how it increases more in those individuals and not in other individuals. But yes, we know that more the elderly people gets, more the severe the disease is. So that is how the disease is spreading inside the body. And as of now, we don't have any treatment options. There is a lot of treatment which has been postulated, a lot of under research, but as of now, none of the therapies seem to be working. There have been a lot of studies which are going on. We are awaiting the reports very keenly.
Yes, doctor. I would actually like to come back on the treatments maybe in a little later part
Sure,
of
sure.
of the webinar. I would like to call on Dr. Lalit Janjirala. Before saying anything about him, I would like to say that he has been a COVID positive patient, and he's now completely cured of it. So welcome back, doctor.
Thank
I
you.
would like to say that since you got the reports, from the point of the reports to the test to the quarantine, from that journey to discharging and post discharge, what has your journey been through? What is your experience, if you can share with all of us?
Yashika, it's obvious, like whenever you get your reports in hand and it seems to be like positive, no one will be like expecting it to be positive. It will surely get you into shock. And whereas in my case, I was into shock, but I was not scared, as I know about the disease bit or very well. समझा? तो उसमें क्या है, in the sense, so I got a sign as fever with chills on 10th of April, like 10th of April. So on that day itself, I quarantined myself, like I isolated myself from my family. I kept myself in a bedroom and started tracing who are the patients. Like I am a doctor and a private practitioner, so I started tracing who are the contacts who I came in contact with, like the patients who I have seen, like and who might be there. Like, I have a domestic travel last month, so it was for a day. So I started tracing him and really recollecting what are the evidences which I can have. So I am positive into it. And other thing was like I have my sister staying with me, so I have to look after it also. She should be getting tested as early as possible, and my assistant who works with me at my clinic, and he also should be get tested as he's the immediate contact to me. So that was my part of plan, and I moved ahead with the plan. Hello,
So
Yashika?
yeah, I'm there. So after you got tested, and so I want to talk about the contact, the immediate contact thing, which you spoke about along with your sister. So can you please also put some light on? I don't want to say the difficulty of the testing, but what was the process that you took to get her tested as well, and what is the kind of contact tracing yourself very responsibly that you're doing?
The thing is, like when I wanted to test my sister, like I wanted to get my sister tested, that was a real nightmare for me. Means she was asymptomatic and no one was ready to visit home to get the swab done. And as I and my sister were stamped quarantine, we have to obey the law and we don't have to go out for getting ourselves tested. So I called up 2-3 labs and they denied me that the system has told them not to go for home visit. They denied me completely and they were not ready to help me out in this case also. I called up the like online app, like online helpline app, and they were also in the first key. What you can do is you can go out and test it, but the law says ki baba you are quarantined, so stay at home. You are not allowed to go out. And there are some labs who even, like when I called them up and told them the problem that I have been tested positive for COVID, and I want my sister to get like she's an immediate contact and want her to get herself tested. So in that case, they asked me for prescription. I told them I am a doctor. I myself I am a doctor and I would like to give my prescription. In that also they have differentiation. Ki you should have a prescription from an MBBS doctor or above it, and no other pathies are allowed to write prescription. So this differentiation is a big headache. And finally, I have to move on. Like I have to search one of my friend who is an MBBS, and I have to take prescription from him and get herself tested, which happened to be like 70 process. And on the 7th day, one of my friend who works in the lab, he helped me out for my sister getting tested.
Okay, that is actually very, very painful journey to go through, especially
Yes,
in such a time where
even
the most
yeah.
important thing is contact tracing right now. So it should not be so difficult. Doctor, can you talk about the situation of the hospital that you were in, and also Dr. Shah, if you would like to go in with Dr. Shakirala on this one, what is the situation of the doctors right now? I mean, on the front lines, those who are really dealing with the patients and uh, are completely exposed to the virus. What is the absolute necessity for them, for all the healthcare workers currently? Can you guys put some light on that? Dr. Shah, can you start? Dr. Shah, your mic, please.
So we are talking about the healthcare challenges the community faces as far as treating of COVID patient goes. So there are actually multiple aspects to it. The first would be the doctors who are actually treating. The second aspect would be the support staff we are talking about, right from the sisters to the housekeeping staff as well as the administrative staff. So as far as doctors goes, I think in urban area like Mumbai, we have a lot of doctors who are actually willing to do duty, and there are a lot of doctors who are actually doing duty. So there is no dearth of doctors who are actually handling those patients. But the problem that is happening is the healthcare support staff. So we have been facing a lot of issues as regards to sisters, nurses, as well as the housekeepers. So a hospital cannot function without them. Uh, Primarily because they are very very scared that what will happen if they get infected. They are not coming for duty, and the staff numbers are always limited. So whenever you come to any hospital, the number of staffs is always fixed. So they don't have a lot of surplus staff. If the staff gets infected, that you can rope in other staff also. And the second problem that happens is while you are doing duty, there has been a regulation that you do 7-day duty and you need to take a 7-day off after that, because you need to be quarantined. If at all you develop symptoms, if you have 7 days of gap, there is very less likely that you can spread it to other individuals. So if that is the case, if the staffs are going to be working 7 days and 7 days off, you need a huge pool of sisters and the housekeepers to be having in the hospital. But at this time of hour, we know that there is a lot of shortages, a lot of scarcity in regards to that. That is why we are not we are not having adequate facilities in the hospital. So if I talk about a Saifi hospital, which has a bed strength of around 350 people, the hospital can only take in around 60 to 70 patients because we don't have enough support system. So that is the main problem that we are facing from the support system as far as it goes. Now talking from the doctor's perspective, we are the people actually we are treating the patients. But if you talk to me or my resident who will be handling there, we are not that exposed because we see the patient once or twice in a day. So we wear those gowns, we go inside, we check all the patients, we see what is the problems, and then we can tackle them on the spot. But the nurses and the nurses predominantly are the people who have to be 8 hours per shift. They have to be inside the hospital, they have to be along with the patient, so that they are exposed more, so they are more likely to get infected as against to our doctors. But like me, I'm just going to take rounds and I'm going to change the treatment or whatever is required. So there are the two aspects which is challenging as far as COVID treatment goes. We are still working on a mutual way where we can maximize the patient care, like we can have the maximum number of beds with the least number of casualties, least number of infection in the healthcare community. That is what the challenge is.
Great. So I like the idea that you're talking about the 7-day duty and the 7-day gap. That is that's a very important point. Dr. Lalit, during your stay at the hospital, would you like to elaborate about how many other doctors were there with you in that ward? Can you shed some light on that?
Yashika, as we are into quarantine, it's a single room, so we don't know who are admitted besides us, and
Hmm.
that might be unethical to declare ki how many are and who are admitted with us. Samjha.
Hmm.
So I don't know who are admitted with me, but I can tell my part. Ki wherever I was
Hmm.
admitted. The system was good, but no one used to come to like even clean the room. I have to sit at my room completely day in day out, and even for the updates, I used to
Hmm.
get calls from the from the desk of the doctor and asking me to get my temperature done, and not a single sister used to come and check my pulse. Okay,
Hmm.
fine, you don't want to touch, at least give a pulse oximeter and get me
Hmm.
tested, right?
Hmm.
So no, it was all on phone. So physically, no one was present, and that
Hmm.
hampers somewhere. Okay, I can accept as a doctor, I can accept this. But what about people who are from a complete different background? People who don't know what the thing is. They need
Hmm.
someone to talk, right? So
Hmm.
I feel there should be some empathy towards the patient.
That's exactly so. That's exactly what I want to come to Miss Barve on this. Miss Pooja, are you there? Miss Pooja, I think your mic is on.
Hello, hi.
Yeah, hi. Uh,
Yeah, hi.
so I would like to talk about this, the part where Lalit just mentioned that the need for someone to talk to.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that? The idea of physical versus emotional treatment. We are all being physically treated right now, but what about the turmoil in the mind that we all are going through? Can you please put some light on that?
Yes. So thing is, first and foremost, good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for fighting for us frontliners. So thank you so much. The thing is, कि mental health in sensitization, especially in India, things are working. People are working. There are few helplines which people are running so that people can call and talk about their issues, emotional issues, uh, as well as physical issues. Sometimes people talk about physical issues also to psychologists, psychiatrists, so that they can guide them. There is a something called some feeling called somebody is with me. So that feeling, I think doctor was mentioning that he was lacking. So calling your family members, calling your loved ones is very important at this kind of a scenario. So yes, mental health is very important aspect. There are certain helplines are working for, especially for COVID, and people are taking advantages. Some people are unaware of this helplines. So yes, but things are working towards positivity, I can say.
Okay, okay. I think that is it's a very amazingly positive note. Thank you so much, Ms. Pooja. Dr. Jinam, I would like to come back to you. Okay, sure, no worries. Ms. Pooja, I would like to talk about some counseling calls from the helpline. If you can talk about some experiences with that, straight from the state authorities or anything. Have you been getting, or have you done any uh, something like that?
I will say I have got calls from frontliners itself. So it's like they know me or I know them. So that is why we are in a position that they can call me. Okay, so they call me. They have their own issues to deal with. There are some kind of guilt, or they are burning out basically because of this kind of a jobs. Constantly they are on field, and sometimes they are also facing discrimination from people for whom they are working. So in all this scenario, they are also suffering a lot from uh, like emotional level. They are suffering from on physical level, it's another part, but they are also suffering from mental level or emotional level, because they need a support, and we are not able to provide that kind of a support enough.
Hmm.
Like I was talking about discrimination. So
Hmm.
thing is ki, we have heard about mob is attacking on doctors, police, or who are working on a front line, or they are not allowing doctors to come inside their own houses or
Right.
societies.
Right.
So this kind of incidences we are hearing.
Hmm.
So coping with this kind of incidences, one need to understand that this is fear of COVID, lack of information
Right.
around COVID. This is
Right.
mob psychology, we call it. That
Hmm.
they are not attacking uh, the person, they are
Hmm.
attacking a profession.
Hmm.
And this is very difficult. This is very difficult that this is very difficult to understand from both the parties right now. This is not the situation we are trained in. This is the situation which is occurred. This is not
Hmm.
expected situation.
Hmm.
So in such situations, one need to understand that instead of attacking them, as a society, we supposed to support them. We need to give them assurance that if they are on front line and fighting for us, we as a people will take care of their family members. We are there for them. We should assure them, but instead of people are attacking and doing all these things, which is not right, but it's not completely, it's like because of fear, because of scariness of around COVID, this all things are happening. Yeah.
I want to come back to the point of fear which you were talking about.
Yeah.
What is so? The basic thing is about you being worried that you are going to contract the virus.
Yeah.
What should one person
Exactly.
not be worried about in this scenario? And what sort of fear should he maybe not worried about something right now? Can you just say something about that?
Saying that ki, don't worry about it, or don't worry about it, or how one can not fear about it, it will be too much to expect from individual. Some lack of knowledge or lack of information around COVID itself is giving that kind of a fear, because people are not getting each and every information, or they are not each and every person is not capable enough to understand each and every information and process that information. For them, it's like social distancing is important. If I come in a contact with somebody who had COVID or who is working with COVID, I might get COVID. This fear, and this fear is not completely, we cannot completely shut off that fear. It's there and it's going to be there. But how we can control it? Like, we are using a mask, we are keeping a social distancing. We can like keep ourselves, like we can follow the hygiene rules, or the the government, whatever government is telling us to do, we can follow those kind of guidelines, basically government guidelines, and that is going to help us to keep the things in control. But if you are talking about particularly fear around COVID,
Pooja, I think your voice is gone. Hello? Hello? Okay, I think I'll wait for Pooja to get back on that. Dr. Janjirala, would you like to share your emotional experience that you have gone through since we are talking about the idea of fear and controlling it, and the tension and the stress that you have been through all of this? And I actually wanted to ask Pooja about PTSD, but how are you dealing with it even after you've come back after your discharge?
Basically, being into quarantine is like one should make up his mind. Like, I have to be there for 14 days. And if at all you're not in that state, you have make up your mind, I have to be quarantined, and it's not for just for me, but it is for my society and for my family. Then it will be easy for one to be there for 14 days. Samjha? So my experience out of like quarantine is, I will say it was one of the learning part. Like, I have learned one thing. It's like, what is the importance of freedom right now? I've learned the importance of freedom, which some people who are roaming out should understand. And it's very difficult to stay over there. And they should have that social responsibility right now, not to roam out and have social distancing maintained. That's what I can tell.
Right, I completely agree with the social distancing part of it, and the social being socially responsible about the distancing. Yeah, Dr. Jiram, I want to address a very personal question to you, and you can actually skip it if you wish. But in these 2 months, what has gone through you emotionally? Because you have been seeing the patients very much closely, even though it has been twice a day. But what is going on in your mind? Doctor, the mute of the mic.
Yes. So there are again two aspects to it. One is what is going through the patient's mind, as Dr. Lalit has rightly said. They're in a lot of turmoil. In spite of being a doctor, he had so much of mental issues that he suffered from. Imagine a person who is a layman and suddenly comes to know that he is a COVID positive patient, which I get phone calls daily. So they get really scared that what is going to happen? Am I going to die? What is going to happen? Even in these times, I have a lot of doctors who are positive. They are so scared. They, in spite of knowing that entire situation, most of the 90 to 95% of the people are going to have no problems at all. They're going to recover completely. In spite of that, they are so scared. I can imagine what a layman would be going through. So from our aspect, from the doctor aspect, we try to show utmost sympathy to people. So whenever I take rounds, I know that 90% of the people are going to be always asymptomatic. So my only job in the rounds is to make them smile and make them laugh. So I keep on cracking some jokes, and all my rounds are all about that right now. Only patients who are actually on ventilators or having a lot of difficulties, that is the time that I try to focus more on the treatment aspect, because otherwise the treatment is just a standardized protocol that you have to give this, because this seems to be working in some of the other countries. You are not really sure, you cannot do research at this point of time, so you give all the treatment and just wait that the patient improves. So from that treatment aspect, there's nothing much to change. So that is the only thing that I keep on telling the sisters as well as the workers, that try to get them mentally stable, because living in a hospital for 15 days where you are not aware about either it is a day or it is a night, then can have tremendous turmoil in your mind. That is what is the most important thing. Now coming to the doctor's perspective, as regards to how I go, so I am I would say that I have the liberty to go out of the house, but that liberty is obviously not going out to roam around. The liberty is going to the hospital and treating patients. Once I know that I'm going to go to patients and going to treat them, I'm very likely to get infected. Me being a young individual, I mean, I know from my aspect that I don't have any comorbidities per se. I'm very less likely to develop any kind of severe disease, but it's still 1%. So there is still chance in 100, and I mean, out of 100 patients, I'm likely to get an infection, and I'm going likely to get a severe infection. Knowing that in mind, that I have prepared myself, if anything happens, I'll be, I'll know what to do and what not to do. But I'm more concerned about my family per se. So my family, I have my father who is actually elderly. He's having a lot of heart issues. He has diabetes. He has this problem and that problem. Even my grandmother is there. My grandmother is also 90 plus. She's having a lot of problems. So I am taking conscious effort that I don't interact with my father or my parents. I live in my room completely. I don't go out of my room. Only thing I go out is I have a separate entry. I go directly to the hospital. I come back from the same entrance. I live in my room. I don't meet my dad. I don't meet my mom. So that is also a turmoil in my head, that continuously I'm wondering that in by chance I spread on the infection to them. It is going to be very bad on my part, that it's going to be the conscience will kill me if I get them infected. That is the biggest fear that I have. And at the same time, a lot of people in the community, in the neighborhood areas, are also very fearful from the fact that I have been visiting the hospitals. They keep on asking me that are you sure you're not infected? Have you got yourself tested? That nothing is going to happen to you or what? I mean, so those kind of questions keeps on coming, and I can see a apparent distancing from me from the community. So Dr. Lalit, I'm sure he also must have seen that. But I have, in spite of the fact that I'm not tested positive as of now, people are still looking at me as a probably I'm going to get coronavirus infection to them. And the same people who are probably if they are going to fall ill with the coronavirus, the same people are going to approach me at the first time. So I would request the community, please, in this times of difficulty, please spare the healthcare workers. They are doing their job probably because of the inner desire, inner wish that we always want to treat our patients. But that doesn't mean that we'll take the brunt of the society and we'll take the brunt of the abuses given by the society. So that is something that I would like to please request the viewers, please try to be sympathetic towards them.
I think that is
for Yashika.
yeah.
Yashika,
Yeah,
can
please.
I?
Please,
For
absolutely.
Jinam, I would for Dr. Jinam, I will surely add something. Like whenever you get tested positive for COVID, like 19, then you get a call from BMC, and they'll directly tell you, "Ki we have orders that you need to be quarantined from the society or something." That is not the way I will accept. They need to come and at least make people understand. I can accept it because we belong to this society who are like doctors, so I know the problem. But the people who are layman or they are ignorant about the disease, they think अरे ये क्या है? Means someone calling me up and telling कि मेरा तुम्हारा result positive है and you need to be staying away from the society and you need to be quarantined. So make people understand, make them empathize कि you have a problem and that is why the reason you have been quarantined. Make them comfortable. At least spend 5 minutes of your time explaining them what quarantine is, so that they can accept it and move ahead towards you. If I get a call suddenly and tell कि नहीं आपको जाने का है, आप क्वारंटाइन में होने की जरूरत है, so it will be a big shock for me at that point of time. So I will always expect someone talking to me at least for 5 minutes, explaining me what it is, what is the scenario, and then move ahead, so that my mind also get diverted and it accepts the situation currently.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in that's what Pooja is trying to say in the whole in a broad manner. So just the importance of someone just not bluntly telling you that okay, आज तुमको उठा के लेके जाना है, but just trying to explain it to you in a much more euphemistic manner that this is this, and we are going to be following a certain process. So yeah, Dr.
Those
Jinam, I would like
5 minutes are
to
much more important.
Sorry.
Those 5 minutes are much more important than
Yeah,
14 days.
absolutely. Yeah.
It will make the
That's
14
very well
days
said.
quite easy to like run through.
That's very well said, Doctor. The difference between 5 minutes and 14 days. Dr. Jinam, I would like to ask about.
Can I come in here?
Yeah, absolutely, Pooja. Please do.
What Dr. Lalit is saying, that 5 minutes is very important, which is true, because if you make them understand what it is and why it is, they will cooperate with you. Instead of that whole struggle and that whole abuse, they will understand, they will be less scared about whole the scenario, and they will cooperate with you. So that 5 minutes is very, very important. We understand that this stress is very high on the workers, then they can distribute that job to maybe other people, maybe social workers, maybe psychologists they can hire, and then they give this job to them, that you supposed to uh, call this patients today, and you supposed to inform. So they will decide how to inform the person, and that might help people to understand why they are treating in the, like, people are treating them in a certain way.
Absolutely, Pooja. That is very well said. Dr. Jiram, I would like to ask a few questions. First, regarding how can a person improve his immunity against the virus and the attack of the virus on the body? And secondly, I would like to now get into the idea of what is the system for the treatment, from the HCQ to the drugs that we are using, and from the most recent technology that we are now doing trials on human, which is the covalescent plasma therapy. So can you please put some light on that? Dr. Mike, please, Mike.
Sorry, coming to the first question of how to improve the immunity, the first and foremost is just you need a healthy lifestyle. So the virus is teaching us the hard way how to improve the healthy lifestyle. So eat well, sleep well, and be stress free. So that is the most three important aspects: mentally, physically, holistically. You need to be in a good state of mind. So that always improves the immunity. Apart from that, whatever diseases you are having, say it's a diabetes or a heart disease or an asthma or any kind of diseases, you need to be under well control. So please give importance to your treatment. So if you have diabetes, if it's under control, you are less likely to get infected. Same goes with asthma. You need to take your regular inhalers. Same with heart, cardiac conditions or hypertension. You need to take on regular medication. That is the most important thing. If you are having a healthy condition of your body right now, you are less likely to get severe diseases. It does not mean you are less likely to get infected. Infection is going to happen come what may. So that is the important point. As far as the allopathy goes in, I am an allopathy expert. I'm sure Dr. Lalit would be having some views from the alternative medicines aspect also. So as far as the immunity goes, second aspect would be second question that you asked is as regards to the treatment. So, I mean, it's a brief topic. Everyone in India, everyone across the world has become a COVID expert. I'm really sure that everyone would be reading about, this literature is coming in, that literature is coming in. But let me tell you, I mean, literature coming in, 99%, I would tell you that it is all, baseless. It's all rumors. There are going to be, I would, probably name this just three websites. If you want to check the genuineness of any literature, see the CDC website, see the WHO website, and see the website of MOHFW, that is Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Those are the three websites which are actually putting out the right information. So please don't forward any kind of social media messages, be it WhatsApp or Facebook or anything. Everyone is trying to spread in messages, thinking that they are going to help the community by spreading that if I breathe in for 10 seconds and I'm able to breathe my breath, I'm going to be not having COVID. So by trying to spread such kind of messages, you're actually creating more fear than actually helping out the individual which is there in the community. So please, without having the authenticity of it, either you check it or you ask one of your doctor colleagues who is treating those patients. If you are not authentic, please don't spread the message at all. That is the honest request I would tell all the citizens. Coming to the treatment aspect, there have been multiple medicines which have been evaluated. It started with HCQ, that is the hydroxychloroquine, which is a anti-inflammatory drug which is used for rheumatoid arthritis, and the chloroquine drug which has been used for malaria. Initially, there was a report from France which mentioned that when you combine HCQ along with azithromycin, that is again an antibiotic, if you combine these two, there are very high chances that the patient will recover from the disease. But those studies are very, very flawed in the sense that they are initial data. They are not control studies. There is a medical terminology. You control with the normal population what is happening in normal and what is happening in the other individuals. So that need to be controlled, and they should have a very sizable population study. I mean, that study which was done was only 30 odd patients. So it's very difficult to actually predict from those kind of studies whether this is acting or whether this is not acting. So HCQs, after that, there has been 4 or 5 more studies which have been controversial again. So two of the studies are mentioning that after giving HCQ we saw that the patient improved. Out of that, the other two studies are telling me that after giving HCQ it didn't make any difference, and one of the studies actually tells me that there are more complications after giving HCQ. So I mean, as a medical doctor who's been treating those patients, I'm not really sure what is working. So according to me, if you ask me whether HCQ is working, whatever I've seen till now, HCQ doesn't seem to be altering the disease progression, I would say. I'm not sure about prevention of the disease, but definitely doesn't prevent, I mean, it doesn't change the disease progression. A person who's likely to get infected and likely to develop comorbidities is still likely to get it in spite of receiving hydroxychloroquine or not. After that, there has been, I mean, I spoke about HCQ and azithromycin. After that, there has been a couple of other antivirals which have been studied. The one is the remdesivir. Remdesivir is a drug which was again used for the Ebola virus also. Ebola virus, you must be aware, there was a big outbreak which happened. So Ebola virus, it had been studied, but the results were again controversial. So, but again, when we are in the back to the wall scenario, we don't know what medicine is working. So remdesivir was tried again. The first patient who was tried was in the US. The first patient of US itself was tried remdesivir. He seemed to have a very good outcome. So after that, there has been a couple of, not couple, there have been 4 or 5 studies of remdesivir also. Again, controversial data, not really sure whether it is working or not. 2 tells me that it is working, 1 tells me it is not working. As far as India goes, we don't have ability of remdesivir because it's a compassionate bed drug. So if I need to use a remdesivir drug, I have to apply to the parent company, the company which is making this drug. I need to apply that I have this patient. I need to get the drug in India. I need to apply. They'll ship the drug. I'll get the drug. Then I'll give it to the patient. That's a very tedious process. By the time, I'm not really sure whether the patient would have survived that long. So remdesivir, according to me, in Indian scenario at least, we don't have either the availability or neither we have good data about it. The third drug, I would say Favipiravir. There's again an antiviral drug, again not available. I just recently heard across the news that Pune company is going to make, but as of now, it's not available. But again, whatever studies we have, it's still the best is, it might work. It is not really sure. No one has proven it conclusively. Then after that, there is a drug known as tocilizumab. Tocilizumab is basically, it's again an anti-inflammatory drug which prevents the inflammation to go all across the body. So in later parts of the disease, when the infection spreads all across the body reacts very weirdly. That is the time that tocilizumab helps. It helps to prevent the reactions all across the body. Again, there has been data of tocilizumab, that it works. but there has been data it doesn't work also. But in Indian scenario, definitely tocilizumab is available. We have it available. Though it is little expensive, but we do get it very freely. I have personally tried in two of my patients, and both the patients seem to have improved. But again, it's a biased opinion because it was not the only drug we were giving. We had given a combination cocktail of lot of drugs. So I'm not really sure whether that acted or other drugs acted. And two is a very small number to conclusively say that this medication is working or not. And coming to the tongue twister that people are difficult to pronounce it's a convalescent plasma. So convalescent plasma is basically a very simple concept. A person who has got infected with coronavirus and recovered subsequently. So your body develops these antibodies. Antibodies are basically bodies which tries to kill the viruses. So your body, once you get infected, develops these antibodies. In a person who is infected, the antibody starts developing, and the peak comes in approximately 1 week to 2 weeks after the development of infection. So what happens is, if you are having very bad disease, what we can do is we can take in the plasma which is containing antibodies from a person who has recovered. We take the plasma, that is the blood. Plasma is a part of a blood. So we take that blood from a person who has recovered completely. We check for antibodies prior to testing, prior to taking that blood. So we take whether the antibodies are there in that person or not. So once we take that plasma, that is the blood from that infected individual and recovered individual, we transfuse that plasma into a person who is actually suffering from a severe diseases. And what happens is that plasma, which is full of antibodies, goes and kills the viruses and prevents a lot of prevents a lot of bad infection in that individual. So again, there has been studies in plasma which has been given, but as of it's not a new technique. Again, a lot of diseases in the past also we have been treating with plasma when we have no other option. The best thing is a very simple science: take it from other individual and give it to this individual. There has been a lot of studies for convalescent plasma also, but again, at best it is still under research phase. Today, in fact, the ICMR has released the guideline saying that convalescent plasma is still under research. Please use it only for research purposes. Don't use it blanketly. It is not very simple to manufacture plasma, so it requires a lot of stringent testing protocols. I have personally, as of now, not used the convalescent plasma, but I'm hoping that soon it will be available in Bombay. It is actually the collection has started. I think early next week we will be able to transfuse that also. But again, at best, it's a hopeful drug. Not really sure whether it acts or not. So ultimately, what the treatment is at the bottom of all these things, in spite of giving all this medication, the treatment still remains supportive. Supportive means if the patient has fever, I'll give him a paracetamol. That is a crocin that you would have come across. If the patient is having any other problems like a muscle pull or anything, I'll give him some painkillers. If the patient is having low oxygen, I'll give him some oxygen therapy. If the patient lungs becomes very, very bad, that the oxygen becomes very, very low, then I'll have to put him on a ventilatory support. That we call it as a symptomatic treatment. Whatever the problem comes in, we try to tackle that problem. So by and far, right now, what we are doing is more or less symptomatic treatment only. A lot of studies have been come across of vitamins and vitamin C, vitamin D, ivermectin, that is an anti-parasitic agent. But again, there is no literature conclusive to prove that. So right now, what we do, we try to give all the drugs which have been having some effect on the virus. So we give HCQ, we give azithromycin, we give multivitamins. At the same time, we give the supportive care and just pray that the patient improves. That is what we are doing right now.
That is amazing amount of information. I would really like to thank Dr. Shah. Yeah, please, Lalit, please add.
Dr. Jeenam, today only I have gone through one news which says postural therapy. Can you please elaborate on it?
So again, at best, it's a news. I'm not sure about the authenticity of it. Postural therapy, I would say that there is a therapy which you have to lay down on your stomach. Normally, we are on the back. The therapy is something which is you have to lay down on your stomach. So it is postulated that there is more air circulation across the entire lungs if you lay down on your stomach. But again, that is I have never done that. I would not advise my patient to, because it's not a comfortable thing. And at best, it is postulated. It is not proven in any kind of literature. And it is not a new therapy. We have been using it for severe ARDS patient prior to this also. When the patient goes in a very bad lung disorder, we try to give that therapy to patients who are on ventilators. So yeah, today also, if the patient goes on a ventilator, if having a very bad disease, I'll give him a postural therapy in the sense that I'll lay him on the opposite side. But apart from that, I would not advise it to any other individual. Sitting at home and trying to sleep on your stomach is not a good option. So please don't do that at your home. only do it under the guidance of a doctor when you are advised to do it. Don't do it at your home. That is what.
Other
Okay,
thing
that
I
is,
would like to add.
yeah,
Okay, sorry to interrupt you, Yashika, but
no worries.
other thing I would like to add, Dr. Jinam, like we having like very stipulated amount of resources. Even if you count our doctors, we are having very few number of doctors. Do you think there will be a wave of only doctors who will be coming positive tomorrow?
So, one thing I've realized that, there is no way that, an individual can be completely safe from getting an infection. So, doctors are likely to get infection, yes, because obviously we are exposed to a lot more number of people. But as and when the lockdown ends, there are very high chances that any individual is going to get that infection. So, I mean, to say that only doctors are going to get infected is not a good thing. I would say, not a correct thing. I would say everyone is likely to get infected once, and the lockdown ends. So that is what I would say. And do you have any other questions? I actually forgot what the questions you asked.
Basically, tomorrow we are going to get a batch of doctors who will be tested positive. And
Yes.
any suggestion towards the system, like you should have a backup plan for this.
Backup plan is the same as a normal individual, a general community person would be having. That if you get symptoms, please be at home, get yourself tested, and be quarantined yourself from your family, and practice social distancing, hand hygiene. That is, what routinely it has been advised. But at the same time, I would, like to comment that, now a lot of news nowadays that people are actually forcing, I would say, compelling doctors to start their clinics. I think we belong to a sector where we are, helping the community. I think it's people who are actually young, who are less than 50 years of age. I think you should start working. And if you get infected, so you can take rest. It's very less chances are there that you actually have a severe disease. But if you get infected, then just stay at home. That is it. I mean, as you have already noticed, that nothing happens. You just have to stay at home for 15 days.
Hmm. Right. Dr. Lalit, I would like to point this one question to you since it is related to Ayurveda. We've already seen so many drugs which are being tested, but one of the state governments is turning itself towards Ayurvedic medicine. Do you want to add something onto that?
As Dr. Jinam has already said, they are trying on the allopathic side. Ayurvedic people are trying on the, and Ayurveda focuses on the prevention more than the disease. So there are many things like many say Giloy is working. Many say you have to take some kadha. Many say you have to make some kadas out of the drugs and you have to have it. But there are no such proofs that you are going to be safe from the disease or not. That's it.
Okay, great. I just want to get into almost the last section of the webinar. Now that we know that we have been inside our houses in the lockdown, maybe more than 30 days now, after this, once our lockdown is going to be opening, I'm sure there is going to be a surge of patients, the second wave of patients, which is going to be coming. Now, so the lockdown was actually used as an extra time. Lockdown was an extra time which was created for the country to be prepared for the next stage of the patients, which is of the disease which is going to be coming in the country. What are the challenges that us together as a community, as a country, or actually as a complete humanity, we are going to be facing after the lockdown is going to come out, after we are going to come out of the lockdown? And second question is to Pooja, that not only physical casualties, but also emotional casualties. So, guys, can you just sum up in a way that, 1 month from now, what is the situation going to be?
Hello. So there might be a patient of PTSD due to all this pandemic and everything. But before that, what we can do right now, we can focus on that. A simple thing is just try and use your time to follow your hobbies. हम कुछ कुछ हॉबीज ऐसे रखते हैं कि टाइम मिलेगा तो करेंगे. So use this time. अगर हमें बाहर नहीं जाना है उस हॉबीज के लिए, then stay at home and continue your hobbies. Or if you want to start something new, start today. Learn something. There are n number of tutorials available online. n number of platforms are available on online. So please use those platforms and try to, you know, understand your own self. That is going to help you in future also. So what is going to happen after 1 month is going to happen, but what we can do right now and prevent it, or we can
Hmm.
reduce it, that is we can work on our own self
Hmm.
and understand our own self. So we can
Hmm.
focus on that, we can focus on our family, we can focus
Hmm.
on interpersonal relationships in house. So we can focus on all these things and use this time in a as a opportunity, rather than okay, this is something
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
like हम पे थोपा गया है, इससे
थोपा गया
अच्छा
है,
है
correct.
we will,
Yeah.
yeah, we will use this time
Hmm.
and we can come out as a better person if we
Hmm.
can see silver lining to this lockdown situation.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Great. I think, Pooja, thank you so much for showing us the silver lining in this situation, because most of us, we are unable to see any positive side of this scenario that we are in right now. Dr. Shah and Dr. Janjirala, do you want to
Yeah.
talk about?
I'll
Yeah.
go. So yeah, so this is not a medical aspect. I would just like to comment. As we are, listening to this webinar, I'm sure a lot of people are signed up into this webinar. We are of the fortunate people. You have a laptop at your home, you have a mobile which is having a smartphone. You are looking at this webinar and actually sitting at home relaxing. But there is more than 95% of the population out there which cannot even maintain their daily needs. So I would request everyone sincerely, first and foremost, is those people don't have livelihood apart from daily earnings. So please try to help them. Those are the people who are affected the maximum. They cannot even go to their ancestral homes, ancestral villages because of the lockdown. They don't have food, they don't have water to drink, and a lot of issues they are suffering. So please, for the fortunate people, if you have enough money at your place, please utilize this for this purpose. That is the thing that I would like to say. Apart from that, yeah, whenever the lockdown ends, I'm sure there is going to be a second wave of epidemic, but we cannot live always in fear. You have to look at the economic aspect also. So if we try and continue getting in the lockdown months and months, there will be huge economic losses. So I think there has to be a balance between the both the things, and I think gradually the lockdown would be released. It would be partial, but it is not going to be a complete relief of the lockdown.
To
Uh,
this,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Please.
to this, I would surely like to, whatever Dr. Jinam has said is completely right. But in this case, also, we have to make people understand about social responsibility more than social distancing. I'll
Hmm.
always prefer to have social responsible people. We are seeing lots of people going to groceries every day and buying thousands of, like, spending thousands every day just on the groceries or some medical thing, which is not right. There are 133 crore population in India, and everybody has some needs. Some might be able to buy, some might not be. So we
Hmm.
have our social responsibility also to treat them equally and not let them die of hunger than of
Hmm.
COVID. So that is what I can say.
Okay, that is great. Ms. Barwe, I think I have a question for you. What role does dharma have to play in this? Would you like to take that one?
Okay, I'm not anybody expert on dharma, but I can say that if that is helping you, your any kind of a gesture or any kind of a ritual of your dharma is going to help you to cope this situation, then everything is right. Everything whatever you are doing is right. And basically dharma is to to take your responsibility and follow your responsibility. So basic dharma says that the way Dr. Jinam said, help people, help who cannot help themselves, or because of money or because of knowledge, if they cannot help themselves, please go ahead and help them. That is a dharma, I can say, right now we can follow.
Yeah,
In
I
this,
think
I can add,
yes, please, Lalit.
Yashika,
Please do, please do.
Dharma doesn't stand for religion. Let me tell you,
Yeah,
dharma means
exactly.
righteousness.
Hmm.
Dharma rakshati rakshita means righteousness. You have to follow the right path. What your heart says. Dharma doesn't mean you are Hindu, Muslim, or Christian or something else. Dharma is righteousness. You have to follow the right path, and that is called. That will always help you out.
Basically, taking your responsibility towards your society and your role, and do it whatever you can do it for your own society. That is a dharma for me. So everybody's dharma is their personal thing, and they should follow it if that is helping them.
Great. I would like to take one question. What does the role of pranayam have to play in this? Anybody would like to take it?
I'll take that. So basically, when we talk about pranayam or we talk about yoga or we talk about meditation, basically those are forms of exercises or mental exercises or physical exercises which makes your mind or body healthier. So as regards to pranayam, I'll just brief it up for all the things, whether it is pranayam or yoga or any kind of exercises. If you are if you are fit mentally and physically, it always helps. So whatever forms of exercises you are comfortable with, your physical exercises or you're working out or you are doing meditation exercises or you're doing yoga or pranayam, it is definitely going to help yourself having a mental as well as physical wellness. So please do whatever you like. It is always helpful.
Great. Are there any more questions? I'm just looking at that. I would actually like to address one thing. What would be a common message to the common person out there? And if there is any, maybe some simple guidelines. I know that we have already been following the hand washing and simple hygiene at home, but there are a lot of people who are stepping out and just buying simple essential goods. Maybe one person of the family is going down every time. So, what is the simple, just a simple guideline for him to be followed?
Should I take it?
Okay. Yeah, either of you can take it.
Okay. So, I mean, I think a lot has been discussed about the social, distancing and the hand hygiene and everything else. I would like to say only one word that, do not panic. Human race has seen a lot of pandemics, a lot of epidemics, and you must have been aware about the Black Death, the plague that had happened, the Spanish flu. A lot of things that happened and it actually killed 1/3 of the population of the entire world also. So please, this epidemic as of now, this pandemic as of now is in a very initial stage, and the mortality rate doesn't seem to be that high. The infection rates also not really high. So I think the first and foremost is just don't panic, don't create it such a big way that everyone is just obsessed about the coronavirus. Things are going to get normal again, maybe 2 months or 3 months down the line, and everything would seem a distant dream. So please relax. Nothing is going to be, having. Even if you get infected, it's not going to be a big problem. There are everyone who's going to take care of the entire community. Healthcare community is ready and prepared for the challenge.
Yes.
Dr. Lalit, you want to add?
As Dr. Dinam rightly said, you don't have to panic, but you can plan. Whenever you think you are, as I have gone through this thing, but I was not scared. I planned myself. I accepted the scenario and I fight it back. So you should have fighting spirit. Go for the positive side. I will always say, think of the people who have been treated, who have recovered, and take experience from them, and you will surely face the challenge easily. And people are there to help you out. Like all the doctors are there to help you out. All the nurses, all the paramedics are there to help you out. It is just that as an individual, how you fight it, how you take the scenario stands important.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing thing to end the webinar with. Be respectful towards the people who are in the healthcare right now. If you need to speak, please do speak about what is going on up here in your mind, and please be vocal about it. And do not panic. First of all, please do not panic. And the biggest thing for all of us right now to do is fight back against what we are under right now. So I think I would like to thank you, all of you, for being a part of this webinar, and all of you, even who have been watching it live. I would like to respect and thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you very much for the webinar. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so
very
much.
Yeah.